Pena Marasu de Chilby, Lam Rim Chen Mo, share you tola. That I should mind the Christian. I think Sheila, and the Kujan of Shemari, Kyabje Zong Rinpoche. Read the Toma Puji would do Church Padaja, Dosa Shemamari. Lucy Naji. Kola Lojun Chenada, make Kyaba Lama Church hanging. What did you?
So, Kyabje Rinpoche says, for example, now here in this group, then Kyabje Rinpoche himself and a few of us here supposed to be well learned about Dharma and have a good knowledge of Dharma. But we also, when we are first born, we all have been just like a little puppy or like a worm. I have not very much have no understanding, no knowledge, no even have no one doesn't know even how to eat and so on, and sit and so on. So there, but then gradually by acquainting one's mind with the Dharma and with the learning of the Dharma, then gradually more and more wisdom or understanding of Dharma has accumulated. If one makes effort, one will definitely make a progress day by day and get better and better. There's no doubt about this. And since we all, even up to the smallest insect, have the Buddha lineage or the Buddha nature in us, and so if one develops this quality within us, then we all have the capacity to progress and finally to attain the enlightenment.
That is all in a simple. That don't that do it. Don't you tell us one. That Chadang Shibura Chichim, Tangani Chadang to the Tangyung. Tangyung Zangi Him. Then a Tangyung, Shalan Jambu so on Hashi. Kasha the Kondo Kasha the Chabajam Barum remember. Patangyu, Kuyumbuchun, the Ramuti, Yahoo.
So that was just an advice for the practice, for your practice, and now we go back to the equanimity. So we first of all we should develop this mind of equanimity, which is very important, which is like the preparing the ground. Like if one has to make some wall paintings, first of all the surface of the wall must be we must make it even and smooth, and then if it is very smooth and very clean and even, then after the drawings, well, one can when one can make the drawings, one can paint very easily. And now, on the basis of this equanimity towards all sentient beings, then we should develop the state of mind which sees, which understands, or which sees all sentient beings as one's own mother. So this is not we are just imagining something which is not true, but all sentient beings in the samsara, they all have been one's own mother for so many times. We are not like a rock or earth or a rock or something like this. We are sentient beings, so for so many times we we have been born under the care of one's own mother. So some people may think, and first of all, does really the former lives, the past lives, or incarnation does really exist? Now that is a different question. We should not confuse our mind with this kind of doubt or this kind of wrong views about existence of reincarnation and so on. And if one has to prove that, then one again has to go into a completely different field, and one needs to make a real studies about this. And there are reasons, there are valid reasons to prove this, but there is no need to again add this all here. And since we are all free from that kind of wrong view, so there is no need to establish to prove the existence of rebirth and so on. Because anyway, if one doesn't accept the existence of reincarnation, then there are so many contradictions will arise, and there will be no end of contradictions. So that's so maybe we should make here a little pause so that you can stretch your legs or go out, take some fresh air. So when we say one should see all sentient beings as one mother, doesn't mean they are all our mother now, because if we think that, then many contradictions will rise. Our father will be also a mother, and that dog will also be our mother, and so on. So that is not the meaning of it. But it means that all those sentient beings, we had a very positive, very close link, a relation with all those sentient beings in the past, and as one's mother in our former lives. So, usually in Lam Rim teaching is it's not like an intellectual studies or like that. So it is principally for practice of meditation. It's just it's something directly applicable to the inner mind. So therefore, this kind of terminological problems are not given much importance. For example, as Je Rinpoche explained yesterday, that the so-called the happiness that we experience, like the different kind of comfort we experience, like the warmth in a cold climate, or like that, there are those happiness in the Lam Rim. There are these happiness also considered as suffering. They are called suffering. So, terminologically, to call a happiness suffering, to call happiness suffering is contradictory, because usually happiness and suffering, they are it's a direct contradiction. They are one can't be the other. They are directly opposed to each other, and so it is not possible. But in Lam Rim, it means that this kind of, it doesn't mean that the comfort is discomfort, but it means that this kind of comfort is called suffering because it is subject to degeneration, it's subject to change. It can become a true suffering, and that's why it is called suffering. But otherwise, generally, it is a contradictory, suffering and happiness. So this kind of happiness, in fact, is samsaric happiness, or they are called defiled happiness. For example, when a monk studies in the monastery, it begins with the study of dialectics, which is very important, because dialectic, then with the help of dialectic, one can understand the meaning of the profound, vast and profound meaning of Dharma very precisely, very correctly and precisely, without mistake. That's why it's very important. And then there, the terminology is also very very important, and very much importance is given to all the terms and everything. But when one when one put all those knowledge into the practice of Lam Rim, into the meditation of Lam Rim, then many of these little problems are to be put aside and concentrate on the actual meaning. So when one meditates on this mashi, or this knowing mother, mashi literally knowing mother, so at that time we shouldn't meditate that all sentient beings are my mother and I am the kid of everybody. That is not the way to meditate. Each person has his own one mother. Well, so many mothers cannot produce one child. So instead, one should understand all sentient beings have been one's mother many times in the past, in our former lives, and they have, during those times, they have taken great care of us. So to understand this, one need to understand the continuation of the lives, the stream of life, the continuation of lives from one life to another, from this life up to the infinite. So this subject of reincarnation, it is something very much studied in Tibet, when one studies all the great philosophy and the dialectics and so on. So, for example, in Buddhism, there are four schools. There are four schools of thought. So all those four schools of Buddhism, they all equally assert the existence of reincarnation. There's no difference at all. And in the non-Buddhist Indian schools, in the philosophical schools, there were 6 major schools. So, out of the 6, except for the Mimamchika, I think they are called, Yangpen in Tibetan, the materialist school, the rest 5 all equally assert and assert the existence of the rebirth, existence of reincarnation. They have reason, they have seen the reason, and they logically establish it. Not only those philosophical schools, but even naturally, the ordinary people, in the former times, even in China, before, it is a natural belief and a natural assertion, or not really assertion, natural belief or natural knowledge or understanding. There's no one who doubts about existence of reincarnation. It is commonly believed. But there is this common knowledge in common belief in China before. They applied the reason of the crop, barley, producing barley crop, and the wheat, giving wheat, and so on. They apply the same theory to the sentient being. So they believe that a human being will, there is reincarnation, but a human being will always take rebirth as a human being, and a dog as a dog, and each being in his own speech, whatever it is, not changing. And in those following the Muslim religion, maybe it's somewhat similar to the Christian belief also, that they believe that when someone dies, then his consciousness will go to the God, and the body, the physical body will dissolve into the earth and into the nature of the earth, and after many years, and the body which is dissolved into the earth will then change into very precious substances in the earth, such as gold or other things. So, except for the materialist ones, then all the schools of Buddhist or non-Buddhist, they assert or accept in one way or the other some kind of existence of the continuation. And now for the and as we said, we will not analyze now in details all these different views about the reincarnations and so on. However, the materialists, for example, the ancient materialist Indian materialist school, there was a master, the founder has propagated such a wrong view or such a philosophy, wrong philosophy, for the benefit, for the sake of his own. He had a certain, he was a person with a very wrong behaviors and doing lots of things, very crazy things, and to justify all what he does, then he was a great scholar, and he composed thousands of scriptures to refute completely the existence of the reincarnations and the law of cause and effect and so on, so that he doesn't need to worry about what he does. Or the other person doesn't need to worry about what he does. So this is like that particular, like a school, or that particular thought is like the first seed of the communist way of thinking. So beside that, then all the other Buddhist or non-Buddhist philosophical schools all assert this point. And for example, in Buddhism, then Buddha Shakyamuni, the teacher of Dharma, himself has taught so many. He has taught about his own former lives, and like as usually we read about the 34 the great rebirth of the Bodhisattva, and like that he has taught very much about his own former lives. And even while he was entered into the path of the Dharma, since the time he entered into the path of the Dharma, Buddha has taken many different kinds of rebirth, such as sometimes a fish, or sometimes a turtle, or other animals like that, in various forms. So one of those former life of the Buddha was the great Bodhisattva turtle, who was living a very big one, living in the ocean. And one time, then some merchants, their boat broke down, and they were in desperate situation. And then this Bodhisattva turtle went towards them and took all those few people on its back and taking them to shore. And after then, the giant turtle was very tired of this great effort it has made, and so it fell completely asleep in the sand.
Ribe Kangwaya Gongche, Yora Rugo no Lude Yoro, no the general Ching, just such news at Tromachini. What about you to Trosana, Troma Kanga Chi Uni, Sanje, Riveki, Godan, Labatan, Kangwata, the Samanal ones Rune, go to much Sour.
So the turtle, while the turtle was sleeping there, then an ant came. One ant came by and saw this animal lying there, so it went inside and then started biting a little bit, and it sort of tasted maybe delicious, maybe. And then it went back to its ant hole and then brought all the ants, about 80,000 ants came, and they fed on the body of the living bodhisattva. The turtle awoke and seen all these, his body completely covered with thousands of ants, and then, of course, if he wishes, he could simply swim into the water, and that is the end of the ants for the ants. But he thought that would harm and cause great suffering to kill all these ants. So he remained very quiet and endured the suffering and gave his body completely to those ants. So when Buddha Shakyamuni, that same turtle, took the form, the body of Shakyamuni, a manifestation of Shakyamuni, and then one time, one Kunduju, that is sort of some religious person, sort of non-Buddhist religious person, that they have a special name. Those who wander always here and there. So one of such wanderer came, and then came to the Buddha, and very delighted by meeting with the Buddha. And after Buddha gave some teachings, he was so pleased with this. And then he went to his own place, and then he had about 500 other ascetics were living with him. So he brought all of them also to Buddha and became his disciple. So those are the ascetic ones. The ascetic people were those ants whom the Buddha has given his body in his former life. So therefore, that is great quality of the Buddha and Bodhisattvas, that not only he helps those who has worshipped him or who has helped him, but even those who has caused greatest harm and sort of had established a very negative link, caused a great harm, are also benefited or also helped helped in a very great way. And so these are the qualities of the Bodhisattvas.
Today is a Jung Hamadu, Mintu Lazi, River Don Chocho, Shen Chocho, Meva, Ganet, all the day the da. Kung Jira de Don Dawa, the Jiro Yamba, Jiro Yago. Only the church and the Chanchu Simbe, today, Jiro Sonjava, Yadon Sunju Suji, the Son of the Pichaloya, Demuchimoyo.
So those 134, the former lives of the Buddha, in many different, taken the lives of the Buddha in many different forms. Some are very low forms or some are higher forms. They are all very interesting and interesting to read, and we need to read them from time to time. It's very it helps very much in our own understanding and practice of Dharma, and also these then help us also to understand better the reincarnation. So those are the scriptural sources which sort of proves the existence of reincarnation. Then now we need also certain reasons to prove it. No. So, for example, we should think of the child which is just conceived in the womb of the mother, the being in the womb of the mother.
Then simte pame kuta le shuba yin jiang, simte kuta de dabu jiang ne, de simte nyang de long yo, long de lan juan shi long yo, long sa chung de long yo yin jiang, long de su mingi jie ya jie, ru gu yong zuo qia guo yin jiang, tao ma, liu ge nang xi ma du, sim jiu wo ma du ya ma de. Tene ka le ma ame kuban ma ji yong de mi ge na xi gu, na ge na xi yong gu de, na to liu da na xi da ji de ne me de gu de qi ya de, shiba mungu de, shiba ji be, yu da ombo da ju jin soba le de ne, shiba ji ge sa bian xian do su yong gu de. Ta ma shiba, za yan zu ge shiba de, ga ne zhong wa de, se zhong.
So when the consciousness of the being enters, the first time enters in the cells of the parent, that time there's only the subtle mental consciousness, and other sensory consciousness are not functioning. They are not manifest, and only the mental consciousness, and especially the subtle one, only the subtle mental consciousness is present, and which is accompanied with the subtle energy. There's a subtle energy and the subtle consciousness are always inseparable all the time, and they are together and enter into the cells of the parents, and then these subtle, then from the very first moment it starts to develop. The subtle energy, which has the essence of the four elements, then start to develop by many causes and circumstances within the womb of the mother, and then gradually, week by week, these energies, more and more energies, develop from that very source, and that produces, that helps the cells of the parents to grow further and to shape the physical, the body, the form of the child. And so first there's only the subtle consciousness, which is very unmanifest, and then this becomes more and more, this becomes grosser and grosser, and then gradually, before coming out of the mother, then all the sensory consciousnesses also arise from the subtle mental consciousness. So the subtle consciousness and the subtle energy, that are the seed, those are the very seed of our present existence, and all our mind, the functioning mind, and everything what we have now comes from there, and developed from there. And now we should search the origin of that seed, that subtle, that most subtle consciousness and the energy which just began in the cells of the parents. That also has its own origin. It doesn't just miraculously, without any cause, it just come to exist. It's not like that. It has also its own origin. We should seek for it, look for its origin. So from the subtle consciousness, mental consciousness develops other the grosser consciousness, and there are certain type of consciousness which are called drukshi. That means that which arises when it comes in contact with the object. For example, for visual consciousness, the form, or for sound or anything like that, when it comes in contact with the object, it rises, and then again it sort of absorbs. It is like one person living in a house with doors and windows, and so that person looks out and sometimes sees other people, the things outside. Sometimes it hears some sound coming from outside, and like that in the consciousness, the subtle consciousness and the subtle energy which takes place in the cells of the parent, and then the subtle energy gradually develops, and the consciousness also becomes grosser and grosser together, and then they produce all the different the different nadis, and also the energies in the nadis, the content of the nadis, and all the gross physical body. They produce all these parts of ourself gradually, little by little, and then the consciousness also become more and more functionable, and until it goes out, and until it start to perceive the external objects, like the sense objects and so on. So it is all dependent to that the subtle consciousness, which is the principal thing. Without that, although there are all the other parts, it is just like a house, an empty house without anybody. So this subtle consciousness, which comes from an unbroken and beginningless, from beginningless time, unbroken line, transitory, not sort of not permanent, but impermanent, meaning transitory, sort of momentarily changing stream of consciousness, subtle consciousness, that comes from the past to the present, to our present existence, starting in the union cells of the parent. And so when the consciousness first enters into the cells of the parent, that very beginning of our present existence, that very spot where it enters is now in our complete body. It is on the heart. It is on the heart, in the heart chakra or in the heart center. That is the very spot where this present body began, where it started, where the consciousness enters. And this subtle consciousness, with its sort of everlasting companion, the subtle energy, its sort of support, subtle energy, they remain all the time in the heart center, in the heart chakra, in the indestructible point, inside the indestructible point. And so this subtle consciousness is unmanifest. Now, during our life, it is unmanifest. It is like in a state of like a sleep. It's not functioning. And from that subtle energy, then all the other energy and the consciousness, various other gross consciousness and gross energies develop, and they function occasionally. They have occasional functions, like when they come in contact with different objects. And this kind of gross consciousness energy, they end. They don't continue from one life to another. They end when our life ends. They stop here and they are finished here. It belongs to this life. While the subtle energy, which is the primary seed, it is something which continues from one life to another through various different stages. So, Je Tsong Khapa said, I forgot, yeah, these kind of things can be, these details about these kind of things are explained in Tantra. If we understand the Tantra, then a precise understanding of these phenomena will become, we will get a precise understanding of these phenomena. Otherwise, in the Paramita treatises, they don't speak very clearly about the subtle energy and the subtle consciousness and so on. So this the subtle consciousness, which is also called the inborn consciousness, that resides in the indestructible point in our heart center, which has no function now, which has no, although it is a principle like a figure in us, but it has no function. It is in a state of like a sleep. No. For example, it's like a fire on an incense stick. If it's placed in a dark room, in a darkness, we can see it from distance. But if sunlight comes on it, shines on it, then it becomes sort of indivisible. It is overshadowed, and it's we don't see that anymore. So when we go to sleep, and then all the sensory consciousness, they sort of absorb and they go to sleep. So we don't see anything, don't hear, and so on, when we are in a deep sleep. But still, the mind consciousness, the sixth consciousness, is still functioning. It is still functioning in many in its gross forms. That's why we are able to perceive the dreams and so on. This is all function of the sixth consciousness, mental consciousness, some gross function of it. So when we go through the process of death, then our consciousness and energies and consciousness also become more and more subtle. They all dissolve. So gradually, so when these gross consciousness start to dissolve, first the sensory consciousness lose their function, then the mental consciousness, such as to identify different things and people and so on, they also lose its function. So one lose all the concept of all the various things. One is not anymore able to identify the things, and then gradually the remembrance and remembering certain things will also goes away, and like that all the normal functions of the gross, as the gross energy, gross consciousness disappears, then the normal functions of our mind will become less and less, and finally it will reach to the last stage of our life, that is the last moment of our consciousness, the end of this stream, the stream of this life, and that is the subtle consciousness. So no other consciousness remains, and except the subtle consciousness. When it reaches that point, then it manifests. And all what it apprehends or it perceives is a very clear and empty experience. No other phenomenal appearance, only just clear and empty appearance. That is called subtle consciousness apparent for some time before it departs. So after the subtle consciousness remaining in that state of clear and empty experience for some time, then there comes a slight change, like a slight motion, slight move, and then immediately that moment the consciousness has departed, has separated from this physical body, and without any gap in between, the consciousness is already in the intermediate stage, and at the same time then again the subtle consciousness is no longer alone. Then further again gross consciousness, new grosser level of consciousness already already risen from the subtle ones, and they function again in the many different ways for the intermediate being. So we need to know these points precisely. That's important. So one should learn the extensive the text teachings concerning this, especially in Tantra. They are in great detail in Tantra. Without knowledge of this, there's no way to practice Tantra too. And so therefore, the fully enlightened Buddha has taught so much and has given so many teachings concerning, covering all types of various different points, and they are all proved to be true, all based on valid reason, all logical and unchallengeable, undefeatable. They are all ultimate truths. So so there is no reason that this particular point is invalid. So actually, if one actually one should know that there are so many great masters in the past, in India or in Tibet, anywhere, those who has practiced the Dharma have, based on this kind of knowledge, when they have practiced the Dharma, they have gained great insight into many things, and also attained great realizations and great powers and great realizations. There, as we can read about them and we speak about them from the lives of the great masters. But still, although we have those examples, past or living examples, but still our mind being sometimes very critical or full of doubt, still we may be uncertain about certain points. And then we should then search for our mind, since we have mind, and it's a very important factor inside. So we should find mind where it is. And there are, of course, different views about this. There are certain people, like this scientists, who locate the mind in our brain. That's also correct. So although the principal mind or the consciousness, the subtle one, its center is in the heart center, in the heart chakra, in the channel, in the central channel. However, this is a very secret, and it is unmanifest. It is unfunctionable. So it is very difficult to locate something, locate it. So what we can see from outside, or can sense or detect from outside, are the gross consciousness and the gross energies, and that they are pervading all through our body. They are everywhere, and the scientists they give a great importance in the brain, because it's true, the brain, it is a very great nervous center, and it has a very great complex. It's one of the most important center, or the center of the nadis or the nerves, and these energies go through these nadis in this like a chakra of in the head or in the brain, and depending on the circulation of this flow of this energy, there runs the consciousness, gross consciousness. So when they do certain tests in the brain, like on the rats or monkeys or something like that, then making certain test and make certain change in their brain, or injecting something or like that, then it can change their behavior or certain reactions. For example, an animal which usually is cautious when it walks, and when they see where it can fall, it comes back. But then by doing certain things, then they don't realize the danger anymore. They just walk straight through, and certain reactions like this. And so by detecting this kind of symptoms or this kind of reactions, then they come to the conclusion that the mental the center or the very this seat of our mind is in the brain, which is not completely wrong because it is a place for our gross mind, but it's not only in the brain; it's also in other parts of the body. However, the subtle consciousness, the principal consciousness, is its center is in the heart chakra. That is quite impossible to detect.
Similar charada, Yevachin, single Zen, Zug, Sim, Chamutica, Zen, Toguyo Mari, Sim Tagaza Gavando Zen, not say later.
So to search for the mind, from externally, from outside, by detecting the symptoms and so on, it's not that difficult. And consciousness, the consciousness actually pervades all through our body, and that's why we also feel the various sensations, for example, tactile sensations, and if we burn our hand or something, then we immediately sense it and we feel the sensation because our the tactile consciousness pervades all parts of our body. So therefore our the present the mind, it in this life starts with that the first moment of the subtle consciousness and the energy in the womb of the mother. That also is it is also a second moment, or it is also a fruit of it's preceding the moment of the consciousness from the intermediate stage, and that also goes back to former lives and so on. So therefore, there is no like a beginning of a real beginning of the stream of the consciousness, and so since it starts in the womb of the mother, the way the present existence starts, it starts with that seed of subtle consciousness and subtle energy, and then going through all this process of evolution in the womb, and our existence ends with the process of dissolution, again with all the gross level of consciousness gradually dissolving and finally coming to the same point, and then again starts another evolution. So it goes through that process from one life to another life. Like the seed and the tree, which are sort of interdependent. They say the tree is the fruit of a seed, and then that again is the fruit of that seed is again fruit of another fruit from another tree, and so on. So they are interdependently related, and in the same way, all phenomena that are compound, that are composite phenomena, whatever they are, sentient or insentient, they all need a cause to produce them. Without any cause, without a previous cause, there's no way for them to come to exist.
Today is a similar sim ngamachi man sim sado kobana sim today jigu na sala sim jigu dole sim jigu gawa yin sim jigu.
So therefore
ko ju nyelen ji go yin sa ane sim nyelen de bata sim ji teo ko mama no ji go yo.
Therefore our mind or the consciousness also also needs a cause to produce, a distinguished cause to produce it, and otherwise and consciousness, the mind can born anywhere or can be produced anywhere in the rocks or in the earth or anywhere it can take place. There's no real any great reason that is was not possible, but since since it needs a very particular cause to produce it, so therefore it cannot take place just anywhere. So all the composed phenomena are all a stream, and the streams are always unbroken. There's without any gap. It's like the current of the electricity, the light. If the current is broken somewhere, then this is immediately it goes off. And in the same way, the mind also, it comes from an unbroken stream. So there's no gap and there's no break anywhere. If it breaks, there's no way to start again. So if we had a break between yesterday and today in our mind, and if the stream breaks, and for example some hours yesterday we didn't have our mind, or we lose our mind or something like this, then there's no way we continue with our mind today. We can't get the mind from anywhere, and there's no way to get somewhere. There's no way to continue with our thinkings and with our all the mental functions, remembrance and so on, because the stream of mind is always unbroken, and it continues all the time. So we are able to remember and able to function in hold these various different mental functions. So so like our present mind now, it comes from the very first moment of consciousness in the womb of the mother. That consciousness also comes from its past, from another life. There's no real great difference, except for there is the change of the life from one body to another. Beside that, there is no real difference.
which is the Hamachi Court. Hamachi Court. He now and Kobana Sim Tambu Tela, Hame Simte, John Hamachi never tell you. Or that it is a lot on it. Majid, Amadu River to say.
So our mind is constantly going through this stream, this unbroken stream of a transitory stream. It is it's composed with many transitory moments. It's not like a static line, but it is a line. It is a stream with many transitory changes within it, with many different parts of moments. And so right now, this present moment, it comes from its preceding the moments, and like this, we trace back now up to the moment of the consciousness in the cells of the parent, and then that also it cannot rise from without cause, or from a different cause, or from itself, or anything like that, but it also comes from another cause of its own kind, which has just preceded before. So it is so this field of the mind and the nature of the mind is a very profound and it's a very complex field, but it's a very important one. So it is worth doing more studies about this, more research and more studies about this, by with the help of the great treatises and the great teachings of the great masters of the past. One should study more about this. It is very important. So it is it's not a subject which can be explained in few words within a very short time, because it's the subject itself is a very complex one. And this has been there have been so many of those. So for most of the people, the reason why they cannot remember their previous events, previous life, is because it is such a big change from one life to another, and going through the process of dissolution, where one loses all the gross function of the mind, all this kind of thing. So because of that big change, and then during also abiding in the womb of the mother for a long time, for some months, 9 months, living there, and completely remaining completely ignorant, and have no contact with the objects and so on. And so by all these complicated processes and this long process, then for an ordinary mind it's rather difficult and to recollect the past, and that's it needs certain power to be able to do so. So although we are again, Je Rinpoche is going over the time. However, these he feels they are important to explain, and also it takes time because we have to go through this this problem of translation, and so Je Rinpoche says he will go on to say some more, I think. So then we may ask and wonder why some people remember and not everybody. But these differences are very much dependent on the karma and on the power of the development of the mind and the accumulation of merit. So it's so it's all dependent on those cause and circumstances. For example, the fully enlightened the Buddha Shakyamuni, when he entered in the womb of the mother, then although for the mother it is like a conception of a child in her womb, but for the Buddha, who is fully enlightened one, is not like an ordinary child who is in a sort of a difficult situation, just completely closed in there. But for the enlightened Buddha, it is within the womb of the mother. It is a divine abode. It is the abode of the Buddha inside, with the Buddha and thousands of bodhisattvas, and giving teachings of the Dharma, and the bodhisattvas and Buddhas coming in and out, going out and coming in, and they're giving teachings and performing various activities of Buddha. It is it's a completely Buddha field. It is a divine abode. Although mother doesn't, of course, know this, doesn't see this, or just feels as usual, but for the enlightened being, it is a different thing. And so also when Buddha actually came out with the mother, he came in a different way, not in the ordinary the difficult process. While mother, the Queen Maya, was taking a walk in a park, and she got a little tired, so she rested, holding a branch of tree with her right arm. And that very moment, then Buddha's the body of the child just miraculously came out from her from the right side of her hip. It just came out, and immediately, as soon as it came out, so it came out without giving any trouble to the mother, without any pain to the mother, without making any mess, and came out completely pure and clean. And immediately, instead of crying and crawling on the ground, it made 7 steps in each direction, and also said some extraordinary phrases, and the lotus flower also blooming and so on. This kind of miraculous or super ordinary, extraordinary powers or deeds the child has performed.
only good true the Tomo me to the Chile, Jevi said the good true Rumbaji, Zevanata Jungu to the Shenshi, Shitaka Beguyo, Debaji again. Today is how Shenwa, the man to visit it. Talk over the Kuba to the Ketchum,
So, and also not only in the life of not only we should learn about these deeds of the Buddha and how he was born, how he lived, how he taught, and so on. The life of the Buddha is very important for us, a practitioner of Dharma, to know, and also not only that life, but also former lives of the Buddha as a bodhisattva, the great sacrifice it has made for the sake of Dharma, for the sake of the sentient beings, as well as the great, the extraordinary, the performance for the Buddha's bodhisattvas have made, even in the form of animals, like they have in many traditions, Buddha taken birth as a bodhisattva, has taken birth as a deer or a bird like this, but giving teachings of Dharma to everybody, to the animals, to the human beings, and so on, and helping sentient beings. All those wonders of the bodhisattva's life are very inspiring if we know them. And but Rinpoche said, but Rinpoche cannot explain in great details all those stories and so on, because, as Rinpoche said before, that we are all dumb and has to go through many complicated process, and so therefore it takes time.